In the heart of medieval Africa, there rose a king whose wealth was so immense it bent the world's economy, a ruler whose pilgrimage shook nations, dazzled empires, and carved his name into the map of history. This is the story of Mansa Musa, the man many believe to be the richest human who has ever lived. A king whose journey across the Sahara was so extraordinary that it sent waves through Cairo, echoed across Arabia, and inspired European explorers for centuries. Welcome to Echoes of Times TV, where history comes alive. Today, we shall travel back to the golden age of the Mali Empire and uncover how one man turned West Africa into a global powerhouse. In the early 14th century, West Africa witnessed the rise of one of the richest and most influential rulers in human history, Mansa Musa I, Emperor of the Mali Empire, ruling from 1312 to 1337. His empire controlled vast lands overflowing with gold and copper, and it dominated trade routes stretching from the deep forests of West Africa to the cities of North Africa across the Sahara. Mali's wealth was legendary. In fact, when Mansa Musa passed through Cairo during his famous pilgrimage to Mecca, he spent so much gold that the price of gold dropped by nearly 20%, crashing the local economy for over a decade. For us to understand how these historical events unfolded sequentially, it is therefore important to go back to the rise of the Mali Empire. The Mali Empire spanned from 1240 to 1645. It was the largest and richest empire yet seen in West Africa. It was founded by a man known as Sundiata Keita, popularly referred to as the Sunjata. He ruled from 1230 to 1255. The Mali capital was Niamey, and the most important trading city then was Timbuktu near the Niger River and located where major waterways and land routes converged. Immense wealth was gained from acting as a trade hub between the interior and southern coast of West Africa and north of Africa across the Sahara Desert caravan route. Salt was a major commodity traded from the north, while from the south came gold and ivory. The empire spanned as far as Ghana, Walata, Tedmeka, and even the kingdom of Songhai, and ultimately stretched all the way to the Atlantic coast. Indigenous rulers back then adopted Islam from their contact with the Arab merchants, and the Mali Empire would thus play a significant part in the spread of Islam across West Africa. Locals, or at least urban ones, were converted, which created communities that then attracted Muslim clerics from the north, strengthening the religion grip on the region. Local leaders would even perform pilgrimage to the Islamic holy sites like Mecca, including their greatest ever ruler, Mansa Musa. Having looked at the foundation and historical rise of the Mali Empire, it is now important to go into the reign of Mansa Musa. Mansa Kanko Musa took power in 1312 and inherited an already prosperous Mali kingdom. He would reign until 1337. Before we continue, it is important for us to note that the term Mansa was a traditional Mali title meaning king, and Musa was the grandnephew of the founder of the empire, Sudianta Kaeta. Mansa Musa gained the throne after his predecessor, Mansa Abubakar II, sailed out into the Atlantic with a large fleet of ships and was never seen again. Exploration loss was Mali's gain, and Mansa Musa, nominated to rule while Abubakar II satisfied his curiosity as to what lay over the horizon, would become one of the greatest rulers in the entire history of Africa. With an army numbering around 100,000 men, including an armored cavalry of 10,000 horses, and with a talented general by his side, known as Sangmandia, Mansa Musa was able to extend and maintain Mali's vast empire, doubling its territory and making it second in size only to that of the Mongol Empire of Kyrgyzstan as of that time. Mali controlled lands up to the Gambia and Lower Senegal in the west. In the north, tribes were subdued along the whole length of the Western Sahara border region. In the east, control spread up to Gao of the Niger River, and to the south, the Burrell region, and the forest of what became known as Gold Coast came under Mali oversight. This latter region was left semi-independent because gold production had always been much higher when more autonomy was granted here. The Mali Empire would never control such large territories or natural resources under any of its subsequent rulers. With the fast growing rate of the empire under his rule, for him to better govern this vast expanse of land containing multitude tribes and ethnic groups, Mansa Musa divided his empire into provinces, with each one ruled by a governor, known as Faba, appointed personally by him. The administration was further improved with greater records kept and sent to the central government offices at Nieni. The wealth of the state increased thanks to tax on trade. The Mali controlled copper and gold mines, and the imposition of tribute from conquered tribes. Mansa Musa thus became extremely wealthy, perhaps even the richest person in history. During his reign, Mansa Musa, like many other devout Mali rulers before and after, set off a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. But when he arrived in Cairo in July of that year out, he caused an absolute sensation. The Mali ruler's camel caravan had crossed the Sahara, and when he arrived in Egypt, even the Sultan was astounded by the wealth this West African king had brought with him. I can imagine he was like, wow, is that wealth? In some accounts, each of 100 camels carried 135 kilos or 300 pounds of gold dust, while 500 slaves each brandished a 2.7 kilo, that is 6 pounds, of gold staff. In addition, there were hundreds of other camels loaded down with foodstuff and textile, horse riders waving the huge red and golden banner of the king, and an impressive human entourage of servants and officials that numbered in tens of thousands. In an extreme gesture of largesse, Mansa Musa would give away so much gold and his entourage spent so much shopping in the market of the city that the value of gold dinar in Cairo crashed by 20% in relation to the silver demand. It would take 12 years for the flooded gold market to recover. During his stay in Egypt with his caravan, the merchants of Egypt in particular were delighted with all these naive tourists suddenly milling about their markets, and they took full advantage of it, raising their prices and relieving the shoppers of their gold at any opportunity they got. Indeed, Mansa Musa and his people so overspent that they left the city in debt. Wow. And a factor which contributed to the later Egyptian investment within the Mali Empire so that the merchants could recoup some of the value of the goods they have given on credit. Historical records state that the king of Mali had given 50,000 gold dinars to the Sultan of Egypt merely as a first meeting gesture. The Sultan was rather ignoble in return and insisted that Mansa Musa kiss the ground in homage. In all other respects, though, this ruler from Africa's mysterious interior was treated like the royalty he was, given a palace for his 3 month stay and loaded wherever he wants. The Arab historian El Makrizi gives the following description of the king of Mali. He was a young man with a brown skin, a pleasant face and a good figure. His gifts amazed the eyes with their beauty and splendor. As a result of his extravagant spending, an indication of the impression Mansa Musa had made is that news of his Cairo visit eventually reached Europe. In Spain, for instance, a map maker was inspired to create Europe's first detailed map of West Africa, created c. 1375. The map, part of the Catalan Atlas, has Mansa Musa sitting regally on a throne, wearing an impressive gold crown and holding a golden staff in one hand, and somewhat gleefully a huge nugget or orb of gold in the other. It was such tales of gold that would inspire later European explorers to brave disease, warlike tribes, an inhospitable terrain to find the fabled riches of Timbuktu, the golden city of the desert that nobody quite knew where to place on the map even in the 18th century. After Cairo, Mansa Musa would travel on to Arabia where he purchased land and houses so that the pilgrims from Mali who followed in his footsteps might have a place to stay. The king was inspired by the holy sight he saw there, and on his return to Mali, he built dazzling audience chambers at Niani and mosques at Gao and Timbuktu. These included the great mosques in the latter city, also known as Dingerba. The buildings were designed by the famous architect Isiaq al-Tujin in 1346 and also noted poet from Andalusian Granada who had been enticed from Cairo following Mansa Musa's visit there. The inducement included 200 kilos, that is 440 pounds of gold, slaves, and a swathe of land along the Niger River. The mosque was completed by 1330 and Artujin lived the rest of his life in Mali. A royal palace or Maduga was built in the capital city and Timbuktu, along with fortification walls to protect the latter city against raids by the Tuareg, the nomads of the southern Sahara. Due to the lack of stone in the region, Mali buildings were typically constructed using beaten earth, bangkok, reinforced with wood which often sticks out in the beams from the exterior surface. In addition to his achievements, Mansa Musa was also inspired by the universities he had seen on his pilgrimage, and he brought back to Mali both books and scholars. The king greatly encouraged Islamic learning, especially at Timbuktu, which with its mosques, universities, and many Quranic schools became not only the holiest city in the southern region of Western Africa, but also an internationally famous center of culture and religious study. Furthermore, Mansa Musa sent native religious scholars to Fez in Morocco to learn what they could and then return to Mali as teachers. In conclusion, regardless of his immense achievement as the emperor of Mali Empire, Mansa Musa was succeeded first by his son Mansa Maghan I. He ruled from 1337 to 1341, who had also ruled as a regent while his father had been on his famous pilgrimage, and then by his brother Mansa Suleiman from 1341 to 1360. That Meghan's reign lasted only 4 years and his place was taken by his uncle, which suggests foul play, but concrete evidence is lacking about it. Mansa Suleiman did continue his brother's promotion of Islam, and the Mali Empire would prosper for another century or so before new trade routes were opened by the Portuguese. The discovery of new gold fields and access to the southern coast of West Africa meant that by the mid 15th century, Mali no longer monopolized trade in the region. Significantly, the Mali's Mansas were also guilty of fighting amongst themselves as civil war racked the empire. As consequence, first, the Tuareg attacked Mali cities like Timbuktu, and then the burgeoning Songhai kingdom, ruled by King Suni Ali from 1464 to 1492. You have heard the echoes of the past concerning the rise and fall of the Mali Empire, especially under the rulership of the great emperor, the man known as the richest in the world, Mansa Musa. Join us again as we explore another moment that shaped our world. This is Echoes of Time TV. Thank you for watching.